Welcome to the Podcaster. Each week, in just 15 minutes, we explore a different project shaping the future of Farcaster. You can listen to our episodes on Spotify and YouTube. This podcast is brought to you by Collider Ventures.
Hello, everyone. We're here today with Ben from Cast.Game. First of all, thank you so much, Ben, for coming over. And I would love for you to start maybe with a very short introduction about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on. I'm a developer from Germany. I've been interested in on-chain social for over a year now. I started out on Lens protocol where I built some smaller projects. And when Farcaster went permissionless last year, that's when I joined the platform then. And I've been really interested in just building frames and I really like the idea of having an app that is fully in Farcaster where you don't actually have to go to another website to use it. And you can do that with, frames, cast actions, composer actions. There are a lot of tools now that allow you to do that. And I really like that idea. So the project that I'm working on right now is called Cast.Game. And it's basically a prediction market for Farcaster posts and channels. So the vision behind this idea was basically to create a way to bet on viral casts. So if you see a post and you think for some reason it's going to go viral or become popular, that there is some way of you putting some money behind that and actually profiting off of it if it does go viral. And obviously with Farcaster, because it's so composable, something like this is possible. And we're already seeing it with, something like fan tokens where you can bet on creators. And obviously this is something that a lot of people are interested in right now. So the first sort of iteration that I built with this idea was a frame called Tizer, which I posted a few months ago. And it was a very simple frame where you could basically just mint an NFT of a cast on a bonding curve. So every cast would have the same starting price. And then whenever somebody minted an NFT of a cast, the price would go up a bit. And then when somebody sold, the price would go down. And it was pretty well received. It was basically just an experiment to sort of see how people receive this sort of concept, if people are generally interested in it. And overall, people seem to be pretty interested in it. But what I did quickly realize was that there wasn't enough incentive to buy long-term or to invest in a cast long-term, because I think when you compare it to investing in a stock or investing in a creator or a token, that is a long-term investment. And if you, for example, invest in a creator, the creator is going to keep posting content and things keep happening after you invest initially. And with a post, the only action that is really taken is when the post is created. And then once that happens, nothing really changes. So that's the reason why I pivoted from a more investment sort of system to a betting game. And that's sort of what Cast.Game is right now. So, basically how it works is that it is time limited. So a round of Cast.Game lasts, for example, 24 hours, and it's only concentrated on a specific channel. So some example use cases could be art competitions or meme competitions or just ways of rewarding quality creators in your channel. And basically, so any cast created during a Cast.Game round can be bet on. And the way that works is basically using cast actions to buy tickets on a bonding curve. So if you see a cast you think is going to go viral or become the most popular, you can buy a ticket, which is basically a way for you to bet on it. And then when the round ends, the most popular cast, or even multiple casts depending on the round, will receive the accumulated prize pool from trading. Basically, the winners are based on the cast score, which I think previously was called the social capital value, which was developed by Airstack. And it basically ensures that bots can't game the system because it actually filters out bot interactions. So it's sort of a game sort of product for you to bet on viral casts. And where I'm at right now with the project is that I launched it on testnet. So it's you can test it with fake money on base Apolia. And the next step is sort of to find a partnership with a channel that is interested in trying out the system, and then launching on mainnet.
I think, Ben, is super interesting what you said before around betting on creators forces you to take a long-term bet on the creator. And I guess you don't really know how successful the creator will be on Farcaster, but it's much easier for you maybe to gauge if a certain cast will be successful or not, because you already know everything that's out there. You know, the cast has already been published, and of course, it's not easy to tell if a certain cast will become viral or not. But I guess it's under your control. The fact that you can already see what's out there, you can gauge how successful it's gonna be. Whereas if you're betting on a creator, you don't really know if he's gonna be casting on a regular basis. The stuff that can happen in the future, he might stop posting on Farcaster at all. So I guess this is a much safer bet in some sense. And I definitely see myself betting on specific ads. Like, for example, a meme. Like, if I see a meme that on the memes channel and I like someone just posted it, and I think to myself, wow, like this is a banger, I'll certainly place a bet on that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely like I would say two different ways of investing. Like if you invest in a creator, you have to actually trust that creator, same way that you have to trust a company if you invest in a stock, that they're actually going to perform in the future. And yeah, when you invest in a social media post, you obviously have all of the information you need in order to determine if it's going to become popular or not. So yeah, it definitely is a, I guess, more controllable way of betting or investing on something. Yeah, that's definitely like the realization that I had when I initially published the frame, and that was definitely a really valuable lesson that I learned. So that was good that I pivoted to a more betting sort of product.
Yeah, that makes sense. And no, I wonder, like, what do you imagine out of the product? Like, right now, it's a testnet. I know, like, it's very early. Like, what other capabilities are you planning to add into the product apart from like betting on specific cast? If you had thought about this.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the approach that I'm generally taking with this idea is that I'm iterating based on user feedback. So I do have like a long-term vision that I could maybe imagine working on Farcaster, but I imagine that idea is probably going to end up a lot different because I'm just going to iterate based on user feedback and see what people think. So my approach right now is once the first Cast.Game round is launched, I'm going to just listen to what users are saying, listen to what they need, and tweak any parameters that need tweaking, because I imagine there are probably going to be some mistakes or some things that can be improved just because it hasn't been field tested yet. So I definitely want to run a few Cast.Game rounds where I sort of just tweak the system and maybe even pivot or move the product in a different direction that I think would be better. And then once I feel I have that sort of market fit, if that makes sense, I want to build a platform so that any channel can just create their own Cast.Game, similar to rounds, where basically you can create like a round in your channel and you can distribute money to casters in your channel. So it'd be a similar setup to that, where you can just go on a dashboard, set up your own Cast.Game, set up your own rules, maybe even set a prize pool, so that any channel can permissionlessly run these rounds, and they will all be managed through smart contracts. So there will be no intermediary or no trust needed as it is right now, because obviously I'm the one organizing the Cast.Games and reaching out to the partners. But yeah, so the future vision is to sort of make it permissionless and a
Yeah,
platform for anyone to use.
and I wonder also, like, if betting on casts could become like a way of like curating casts on channel, because I feel like let's say that a certain cast is being voted, like is being bought by like multiple people in the channel as a banger. That probably means that it's not a bot, but the one publishing it, and also probably means that it should be shown at the top of the feed because apparently it's a great cast. Like, I wonder if you had thought about this as like essentially having prediction markets in some way, curating feeds on channels.
Yeah, for sure. I think curating content is definitely a potential use case of this. The way I see it is that it could really help smaller creators that post really good content to become more popular. Because I think the way that you can really profit off of this system is if you search out those people that don't have a lot of followers, but the content is really good. And then you invest in that and you promote that. And if a lot of people agree with you that the content is good, you could, potentially make some money. So I think it does have the potential to sort of surface smaller creators that previously haven't been that known in the space. So yeah, I think if used right, it can definitely be used as a sort of content curation tool.
Very cool. And I wonder, like, what sort of challenges and obstacles have you faced while building Cast.Game?
So I would say the main sort of learning or the lesson that I've learned was definitely the pivot that I did from the first iteration to what it is right now, where I realized that casts aren't really a long-term investment. Like you can't really invest in a cast same way as you can invest in a stock, like I said earlier. And it's, it is more fitting for a betting sort of game where you just bet like short term.
So I wonder, Ben, what sort of like differences do you see as a builder now that you're building on Farcaster compared to your your past when you used to build on Lens?
Mm-hmm. I think the main difference is the user base. Like the reason that I switched from Lens to Farcaster is because I think Farcaster it depends on what kind of app you're building, but I think Farcaster generally has a very receptive user base to new builders. And especially also because Farcaster has a bigger user base, you can more accurately test your product and get user feedback. I think you can do that on Lens as well. In my experience with frames, when I initially built my idea, I got a lot of user feedback, and that is also because the quantity of users is just larger. And in terms of like technological differences, Lens protocol definitely has, or when I last built on Lens, which was about a year ago, so it's been a while, they have a lot of like the network is very composable, even more so than Farcaster, at least back then, where you could basically build modules into posts, and you could essentially customize anything. You could customize posts, you could customize profiles. So things like Socialfy were already possible there. And it was a great sort of introduction to on-chain social, and it sort of showed me, wow, like this is really cool. You can actually build amazing apps. Like you can essentially customize anything and just use this open source, public, decentralized social graph and build your own experiences with it. So Lens was a great sort of introduction to that. But I think Farcaster is sort of a more, I guess, sustainable network, if that makes sense. I think the users are like the communities are very different on Lens and Farcaster. But I think, again, I haven't been on Lens in a while. I think Lens has done also amazing advancements in the past few months. They've also went permissionless a while ago, and I know they're doing some pretty big things. But yeah, I think as a builder generally on-chain social, it's worth checking out both. I think it's worth experimenting on both platforms, seeing what you resonate more with. I think they are very different communities, but I think it just depends on what your goals are and what kind of a person you are. And yeah, I think both platforms are definitely worth checking out as a builder and even just as a user.
Cool. And I would love for you to explain, like, what's your thesis behind decentralized social? Like, you've been in the space for a while now. You built in essentially the major socials that we have in crypto. So I wonder, like, what's your thesis behind Farcaster and decentralized social in general?
Yeah. So the reason I'm really bullish on Farcaster or just on-chain social in general is because I think that social media, since its creation, has become super influential, like on society and the world. And I think at this point, it pretty much influences the majority of the people and it influences their thoughts, their political beliefs, a lot of things. I think social media has a really large influence on that. And I think that centralized companies that right now are the biggest social media platforms, they're focused on extracting profit from the network and less on actually creating a fair space for users to exchange information and connect with each other. And it's more just based on profit and money. And I think we're seeing it with a lot of platforms where, they implement changes, maybe API pricings or something of the similar, where users push back and it basically creates a platform that isn't super open and it restricts a lot of things. And I think in the future, because as time goes on, social media will just have more influence on society and I think it will just become bigger and bigger. I think in the future, there should be some sort of social media platform that is permissionless, that is unbiased, and that is also open for builders. Because I think that is another really cool thing about decentralized social is that if you want to build something with social, you can do that with Farcaster. Whereas, if you take Twitter, for example, which I think is the main comparison with Farcaster, you can't really use their social graph because it's owned by Twitter to build your own apps. And they also restrict, I think a lot of apps that have been built on Twitter have been restricted due to API pricings or other reasons, or I don't know, like the rules of the platform. I guess when platforms change their rules, that can also, catch a lot of people off guard, and people have been banned because of rule changes. So there are a lot of, I think, issues with centralized social that can be improved and should be improved. Because again, I think social media should be a place where everybody can just exchange information and there's no bias and anyone can also contribute and also earn money. I think that is also a really big factor, is that when you create content on any platform, you're creating value. And on centralized social media platforms, that value mostly goes to the companies that own the platforms. And I think what's really cool, especially now that what we're seeing with Moxie, for example, is where you can actually earn money for the value you create with your content. So it has actually fairly contributed to the users and to the people that create the value. So I think that's another really cool part of on-chain social. And I think, in the next 5 or 10 years, that should be a place where a lot of people are. And I think it definitely has the potential to become mainstream. It definitely is dependent on a few different factors because Farcaster is super early. But I think it's very well positioned to eventually become a mainstream platform.
We are approaching the end of the episode, but I would love for you, Ben, to also share with us some alpha about what's coming up on Cast.Game.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if this is alpha, but for the next round, if you want to be updated about Cast.Game when it actually does launch on mainnet, you can follow the Cast.Game channel, and I'll basically announce when it launches on mainnet. So any updates about the project will be in that channel if you're interested in keeping up to date.
Ben, thank you so much for taking the time to participate in the podcast there. It was a pleasure to chat with you. I invite everyone to try out Cast.Game, even though it's in testnet, and Ben will be announcing once it's on mainnet. I invite everyone to try it out. And yeah, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ben.
Thanks for having me.